Hello again. We're gonna begin a series. I don't know how long this is gonna go. Truly, it could go every day for the rest of our lives. But we're going to dive in to something that is extremely heavy, extremely heavy. And to give the series, whatever you want to call it, a title, it's going to be The Glory. And inside of this is going to be multiple aspects, multiple folds inside of this little series that we're going to do. And so it would take quite a long time to go through all of them in one. So we're going to break these up. Really, I thought I had a title for the first one. This is going to end up actually just being the introduction. It's a message, but it's still the introduction that's going to move us into this and move us into the place, I pray, I hope, into the glory of God. And this all started dealing with in Ezekiel chapter 1 and verse 1. Ezekiel, it says, "Now it came to pass in the 13th year, the 4th month, the 5th day of the month, he was amongst the captives by the river Kibar." And he makes a statement of what happens at this point in time. He says, "The heavens were opened and I saw visions of God." The heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. Now, this is quite heavy in the sense that what we run into today, and too often, too much of the representation of today is not to have a vision of God. It's not about seeing the glory, beholding the glory. It's not about being in pursuit of the glory of God. It is merely about coming in, learning the motions, learning the yeses and the nos and the amens and these different things. And then there's a lot of things that deal with about God, but majority of it is not particularly to God. And so you've got one of two things. We either have a false doctrine, a wrong doctrine, or we have surface level about God and never really diving in to the glory of God and never having a vision of God. And so here in Ezekiel 1, chapter 1, what happens? Ezekiel moves and he says, "The heavens were open and I saw visions of God." Now this is highly significant, should be for our walk. It is abundantly significant for our walk. We need a vision of God. Proverbs 29 and 18, it says that without vision, the people perish. Without a vision, the people perish. Without a vision of what? Without a vision of God. This is a spiritual side. The perishing is a spiritual side. That perishing means that I can come in and I can say the yes and I can say the no and I can say the little prayer and I can cry sometimes and I can sing the songs, but everything, that fear and reverence of God is not there because it's taught by the precepts of men, and I've had no true vision of God. And if I've had no true vision of God, I have no fear, no reverence, no real reverent fear of God. Therefore, I merely become a religious worker. I go through religious motions. Even though I may excel at those religious motions, I still have no true vision of God. It's amazing. And I've dealt with this before, but Ezekiel, at the end of Ezekiel 1, he says, he goes, so he saw visions of God. First, I'll back up. Ezekiel 1 deals with, even though pieces of it are confusing, he deals with visions of God. This is what Ezekiel deals with in Ezekiel 1. Too often somebody will start and they'll get into Ezekiel 1 and they'll get about, 5, 6, maybe 8 verses in, and then they just kind of pass on. Well, because that's a lot to take, and there's a lot of references, and I can't really understand them, and I don't know. But this is the vision of God, right? If we dive into it, if we dig into this, we see such a beautiful and immaculate vision of God. And then he ends with this. This was the appearance, verse 28. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw, I fell upon my face. That's Ezekiel. We've been through Isaiah. Falls on his face. Daniel falls on his face. John in Revelation falls on his face. There's a vision of God that we must have. And in this vision is where we come to know God. Not know about God, not know of God, not taught the fear of God by the precepts and the doctrines of men. But just as it happens in Job, God answers Job out of the whirlwind. And God lays into all of these things in pertaining with Job. Absolutely lays into him. And Job finally has a vision. Not that he didn't believe God. Not that he didn't know about God. He finally had a vision of God. And he said, I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. I've had a vision of God. Therefore, I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. The same response Isaiah has when he says, woe is me. He sees God and he sees this splendor and this majesty and this glory. And Ezekiel says, woe is me, for I am undone. I am in a place that I don't belong. I am in the midst of the purest of pure and the perfect of perfects and the whitest of peaks and the holiest of holies. I don't belong here. Woe is me. Without a vision, the people perish. Sadly, today, the time in which we live, there's no vision. There's no vision of God. When we take all the different places, and I could go through in Psalms and in Exodus and in all these different places, and in Revelation and all we'll go through these. But to go through all these places that deal with the glory and the majesty and the splendor and the wonder of God in His glory, in His sovereignty, in His omnipotence, and His power and His might. Without that vision, we don't have a reverent fear of God the way that we should. The way that we will have if we've had that vision. This is laid on me for days. This is so heavy. It's so weighty, because this is our foundation. The vision that we have of God truly is our foundational core of how we serve God, how we view God, how we reverence God. We see such an extreme lack of fear and reverence. Jesus. We see a place where we go through motions, and 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 there's no life. There's no real life. There may be excitement. There may be fun. There may be entertainment. There may be things that, I guess if you will, look like fire, look like splendor, wonder, majesty, things that look like life, that may give, I don't even know, maybe a type of presentation of life, if you will. But there's no true life there. There's no power. There's no reverence. There's no reverence of God. There's no place where that fear is driven down to the very core, the fiber of our being. What the Bible talks about our bowels, it's not literally meaning our guts. It's meaning the inner of the inner, the deepest depth of our person, the very inner man. That fear, that reverence. It has been lost because there's no vision of God. People want their doctrines, and they want their different pieces of this and their different pieces of that, but they don't want the glory. They don't want a true vision of God. And for many, the reason for that is because it costs you everything to have that vision, because with the vision then comes the commission, the true vision. The true vision of God comes a true commission. And in that true commission is death to self. It's taking up our cross, denying ourselves and following Him, and going into a world, no matter the cost, to go out and to preach that gospel, and to be hated and despised and rejected for the sake of that gospel. We don't want that. People don't want that. They want their comfort, their religion, their ease. Look at the prayers. Look at the way people pray. Look at the way things are done in a manner to pray for comforts, to pray for the ease. It's done in a manner so as to say, okay, I'm going to bring you in and I'm going to teach you how to do X, Y, Z so that you get A, B, and C. I'm going to teach you these motions in order for you to get, and this is going to carry us into the next part of this, and it's about humility. And so I'm going to try not to dive into it too much, but we're going to move into humility as being the first. That's the staggering place that we are brought to when we have a vision of God, a true vision of God. When we love to make our claims, and we love to go through our motions, but we don't really want to have a vision of God. We don't really want the glory of God abounding in our lives. Because for most, the cost is too much. I could go on and on about this. There's so much. But I'll leave this to the introduction, and we'll get into the rest as we go through this series of the glory. If you're going to follow this series, my prayer for you, my request to you is to go before the Lord, to get shut in before God, and to just pray and pray for a vision of Him, for a vision of His glory, for a revelation of His glory. That would be my request. That is my prayer for you, for me, for all of us. I'm looking forward to tomorrow when we deal with humility and as we dive more into the glory of the Lord. Thank you. I love you.